Am I the a-hole for not letting my stepmother meet my daughter? Myself, 33, female, and my husband, 38, have a 3-month-old daughter. My stepmother is strictly prohibited from approaching me and my baby, and consequently my father refuses to see his granddaughter without his wife. For context, my stepmother had a clandestine termination in her youth and had severe complications which left her infertile. When she married my father, she immediately came to see me and my siblings as her children, being very pushy and invasive, and wanting to outdo our mother, who is alive and present in our lives. Even when we were kids, the situation made us uncomfortable, and her obsession with motherhood and being our only mother scared us and drove us away completely. My father, wanting her to be happy, started trying to force us to call her mommy. But eventually our mom got our custody and we moved across the country. Over the years, and a physical distance, my relationship with them became more tolerable. There were occasional problems, such as the fact that she wanted to be mentioned as a mother in the wedding invitations, or when she tried to adopt my niece after my sister-in-law's death, declaring that my brother was unable to raise his daughter. Then before the pandemic, she and my father moved to my state, something common for retirees. She then started posting photos of my ultrasounds and baby clothes, with captions like, "Looking forward to my baby's arrival," or "At last entering the journey of motherhood." I scolded her and demanded that she delete the posts, and that's when the physical harassment began. As we live at the same condominium, she started to come up to my house several times a day to check me, fight with me about what I ate, and set up a complete nursery in her house, telling me that the baby would need to spend the first few days with someone more experienced to take care of him. When we found out it was a girl, she immediately started saying that finally her Christina would come, and our dream would finally come true. I immediately denied that this would be my daughter's name, and made it clear that she would not be a mother figure to my baby. My stepmother then reminded me that a lot can happen during childbirth, and that it was better that my significant other and I understood that she and my father were prepared for any eventuality, and that I couldn't be cruel, and deny her the closest thing she'd ever have to a daughter, since I didn't accept being her daughter. After that and other comments and actions, my husband and I decided to take some action in case she tried something. And now, 3 months after my baby was born, my father refuses to visit his granddaughter, even though we live close together, as I don't allow his wife to play mother and daughter with my baby. I understand that she has frustrated maternal instincts, but my daughter is not her replacement baby. So Reddit, am I wrong? Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Not today, Hall. Trust your parental instincts. You're not obligated to humor her. Your father is capable of making his own decisions. Thanks. Her attitude makes me very uncomfortable. And my husband is also worried. My dad says she's just very motherly. And that it's only natural for her to want to become close to the children and the family since she was never able to be a mother. I adore him. But he accuses me of being insensitive and denying my daughter the love of an extra mother. Not today, Hall. Best advice, move away from her. She doesn't care about you. It is clear from the interactions that she has manipulative ways of trying to undermine your choice. She was always like that. I think she resents the fact that my 2 brothers and I never accepted her as our new and only mother, that we preferred to live with our birth mother away from her and my father. She tried to get a surrogate through an agency, but apparently they realized she wasn't very mentally stable. Major not day Hall. Honestly, if possible, I'd consider moving. Hi. Unfortunately, moving is not an attractive option. My husband and I live in a great house, in a gated community, and with an amazing structure for families. Our house is our own, and we buy it without sinking into debt. The most we could do was change the locks, install a fence, and new cameras to prevent surprise visits. My father lives in another house in the same community, and unfortunately he doesn't want to leave here, as it's full of benefits for retirees. And now for the update. My husband and I hardly slept that night. Partly because we've been reading your answers, and partly because a 3-month-old baby sleeps little and breastfeeds as much as possible. Thanks to you, I was able to see that my father will never protect his children, especially if it means putting limits on my stepmother. But the big point, the straw that broke the camel's back, was what happened this morning. As I work from home, and my husband owns his own company, we decided to streamline the moving process. What was our surprise to find my stepmother in tears at our gate, properly locked, screaming and begging for my forgiveness, and claiming that all she wanted was love, happiness, and that I have no right to deny anything so small to her. For me, it was like coming out of shock. After threatening to call the police, my father finally came and took his wife home. Immediately, I called my stepfather and he and my mother came to pick us up. I was glad he came as he is a very intimidating man, as well as being a retired police officer. We've packed a few essentials and the three of us will be staying at my mom's house for now. She lives in an apartment with plenty of space and 3 levels of security to allow access. We are in contact with our attorney who will refer to us to someone who specializes in family status, and we will seek to get a restraining order under our old address. P.S. To someone who asked me in private, my sister-in-law's death was caused, according to the police report, by an alleged mechanical failure in her car. At the time, with the whole situation going on with my brother and niece, I never really went into the matter. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for admitting that my parents and niece are the reason I left? I, 29 male, have a niece, 19 female, and as the title says, she and my parents are a massive reason why I moved away. When she was a little kid, she was unbelievably disrespectful and just downright mean. She would literally scream, yell, and if no one was around, she would cuss at me. And occasionally, she would do random crap that she would have never done if my mother, her grandmother, or her parents were around. For example, she would spit, throw stuff, purposely spill stuff, and if I ever stopped her or told her to stop, she would run to grandma and tell her I was being mean, and I would get in trouble. And if I didn't stop her, I would still get in trouble. Then a month before my 18th birthday, I told my parents that I wanted to visit New York City, and they said that was fine. We live in South Carolina if that matters, and my niece's birthday was 2 days before mine. 3 days before my birthday, and 2 before we were supposed to leave, I already got my bags packed, and they saved up, booked the tickets, and were ready to go. The next day, my parents informed me that we couldn't go, because they had planned a huge surprise party for my niece, but they miscalculated or something, and it was a lot more expensive than they thought. If I remember correctly, it was about $6,000, so they used the money that they saved for the trip on the party. When I asked them why they couldn't just cancel it instead, they got mad and my dad said I was being an entitled brat, and my mom said I was being selfish for not wanting my niece to enjoy her special day. Well, they didn't cancel it, but instead moved it back by 2 days due to some kind of schedule mix-up. I was honestly tired with their bull, so I moved to New York and went to college there, and that's where I stayed. And now I'm an attorney with 2 amazing sons. About 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from an uncle about a family reunion. It was a couple of days ago. I thought it would be nice for my sons to meet some of their family members, as if I recall correctly, the only people they know are the people who moved up to New York, which is a couple of my cousins and my younger brother. So we went, and when I saw my niece, she acted the same as she did before. Later in the evening, my aunt asked why I moved to New York. My mother answered for me, saying that it was so I could go to college. I found it unbelievably amusing that she thought after all these years that was the reason, so I started laughing uncontrollably. My mother asked why I was laughing, so I told her that NYU wasn't one of the reasons why I left, and it was because they were crappy parents who loved and cared about their crappy granddaughter more than their son, and my niece was, and still, is the perfect combination between a crotch goblin, a brat, and a turd stain. My mother called me an ungrateful, disrespectful brat, and my brother and sister-in-law were pissed. I was a little pissed myself, so I just left. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. And great timing before niece invited herself to visit New York City now that she's an adult. Right. OP, you did the right thing by going away, and now you've had a confirmation that you should stay away. Not the a-hole. The only issue here is the delay. Couldn't you have told them sooner what you thought about their parenting? That putting your niece first and their son second was a failure in itself. Glad you got your life together. I brought it up in the past many times. My father would just shrug it off, and my mother would always say that I was acting/talking silly. When I confront my mom about horrible toxic stuff, not labeling it like that but clearly spelling it out what she did to her, she also likes to say I'm not making any sense or being ridiculous. It means you're freaking right, but they don't understand why you won't just roll over and take it like you're supposed to. Everyone sucks here, but only because of the way you phrased it. If you'd have said something like, I actually left because I couldn't put up with my niece's behavior, and everyone else happily enabling that behavior at the expense of my happiness and well-being, then it would have been a clear-cut not a-hole. But the phrasing you used there wasn't necessary in my humble opinion. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister the truth? I, 25 female, took my sister, 16, to coffee on Friday to catch up and spend time together. All was well until she began telling me how much she hated spending time with me as a kid. She exclaimed how all that I cooked for her was Kraft dinner, box mac and cheese, every day, and that she hates it now. She added about how it was so bossy and never played with her, etc. The initial remark was whatever, but the constant poking fun at me really got to me, and I corrected her. I told her that I was 9 years old when she was born, and I had to take care of her because my mom didn't come home every night. I told her that I was 10 years old trying to figure out how to change diapers from reading the Huggies box. How I was cooking her Kraft dinner every day because I was 11 and she was hungry. My mom had a really bad addiction problem, and we were taken away when I was 14 and my sister was 5, and both given to our dads. We have different ones. They never told her the details, so it was only her memory that was so hard for me. I had been raising her for 5 years, and I felt like she was my own. I told her that I'm sorry I did a poor job raising her, and no, it wasn't fun or enjoyable, but I was just a kid too. Part of me didn't want to shatter whatever childlike memory she had about our lives together, but it was too much to carry, and to also be made fun of for it. She was super nice about it, and honestly, we bonded a lot since then and actually talk again. Then I found out that her stepmother had been lying to her about contacting me to see her and telling her I don't reply. I've never been contacted to see my sister. She said she was confused by her memories, but it made more sense now and that she loved me. 2 days later, our mom, who is 5 years sober now, called me screaming about how I got my sister taken from me because I was jealous that she got more attention and I was trying to ruin my mother's life. I told her that I'm not the one who called CPS. My sister's father was, and she just kept screaming and saying that I had no right to dump that on your sister. She has custody of my sister again just this year. Am I the a-hole for outing how terrible our childhood was? I would have loved for my sister to not be hurt or affected by it, but I couldn't bear the blame I was getting. Was it selfish? I thought she'd be old enough to hear the gist of it. Now for the comments. There's an old saying that when you sober up a drunken jerk, the result is a sober jerk. If you need someone and want to say you weren't wrong, I'll be that person. Your mother made you responsible for her parenting duties when you were a child, and now she's trying to scapegoat you for her mistakes. That won't wash. Not an a-hole. Good on you for being there for your sister as best you could when you were younger, and for mending bridges with her now. Yeah, it is really difficult having crappy parents and having to deal with their BS and drama as a child. Not an a-hole. Your sister deserves to know the truth about her childhood because no doubt she has been affected by it, even if she doesn't remember it. I'm the little sister in your scenario, and it took a long time for me to process through therapy, and I'm still working on it 15 years later. But I couldn't have done that if I didn't understand what happened. You did the right thing. Your mom is just taking her guilt out on you. I'd like to amend this. The mom is taking out her shame on Opie. Guilt suggests she feels remorse. Shame is when she feels bad because of others' perception of her, rather than her perception of herself. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not taking my husband to my brother-in-law's funeral after he went against my sister's wishes? My sister's husband was sick for over 6 months. In the past couple of months, he got worse. They have 2 kids, nephew 4 and niece 6. So I agreed to take the kids in to look after them and help my sister focus on her husband. A week ago, I got a call at 6:50 from my sister crying, telling me her husband just passed away. It was so devastating. I was still in bed when I got the news. I checked on the kids and they were asleep. I had to go see my sister and be with her, so I asked my husband to keep an eye on the kids and warned him not to tell them about their father's passing till their mom gets there and tell them herself in her own way, since she made me promise to wait until she tells them herself. He nodded, but said telling them the sooner the better. I told him it was none of his business, and he needed to respect their mother's wish. He said I could go, and he'd watch the kids. An hour later, my phone rang while I was with my sister, and it was my husband telling me to get home ASAP because the kids had a breakdown after he told them their father passed. I was dumbfounded and so mad and helpless. I asked why he told them, but I couldn't hear his reply because the kids were crying loudly in the background. Their mother heard and figured they found out, and she told me to drive her to see them. I apologized for what my husband did, but she didn't respond. We got home and it was a mess. My heart sank seeing the kids crying for their dad like that. Their mom took them inside a room and shut the door. I lost it on my husband. And he said he didn't want to say anything, even made them breakfast. But when he heard kids talk about what they were going to do when they see their dad soon, he felt the urge to tell them. I yelled at him for going against my sister's wishes. He apologized to my sister, but she said she doesn't want to see him because the kids stopped talking from their trauma. He wanted to go to the funeral, but I told him my sister doesn't want to see him and I'm respecting her wish. He got upset, saying I excluded him from family event, which was unfair and flat out petty. He said he couldn't help it, so I shouldn't hold him accountable because it just happened. But I felt ashamed and a major letdown for my sister because she stated her wishes and he didn't respect them. Not a-hole at all. Do not take the responsibility of your spouse's acts onto yourself. You clearly expressed your sister's wishes. He made the choice to go directly against them. Your sister had every right to not want contact at all with him after that. Who knows how the kids would have responded or been more traumatized seeing him again. You're not petty. You are trying to love and respect and support your sister in her time of grief. Yes, I agree, but he's been giving me grief about how harsh I was towards him. That I should have let him attend a funeral with me, completely ignoring the fact he went against my sister's wishes, and she rightfully wants some space from him. It's not about you. None of this is about you. On repeat until he gets it. What kind of narcissistic prick thinks he should be the one to break this kind of news to children, when their mother is effectively on her way over to do that very thing? Not a-hole. Now your husband wants to show up and cause drama with a widow at a funeral? Is he crazy? You need to take a very hard line with this guy. And it's not a family event. It's a funeral and he's an A. Am I the a-hole for telling my niece what her dad did and causing him to be uninvited from her wedding? I, female 34, had a bad history with my brother-in-law for years, and I got contact after he got me kicked out of my university that he worked in by telling a lie and ruining my future. I got a restraining order against him later, but my parents were against it. I still had/have a close relationship with my niece. She and my sister visited alone, and then began seeing her out or at my place. But my family pressured me to not disclose to her the reason of no contact with brother-in-law. So as my niece grew up, she thought we had a normal family dispute, and tried to get us to reconcile many times, being encouraged by my sister and parents. But I got my niece to stop when she was 19. Now she's 21 and getting married soon. I got a wedding invite from her, and I felt cornered because there was no way I'd come knowing my brother-in-law will be there. Declining to go would be devastating for her as she always seek my support. So I returned the invitation and made up an excuse so I won't attend. But my niece came to ask why I hate her dad so much that I can't even show up to her wedding. I tried to vaguely explain that her dad wasn't a nice person to me, but she demanded to know exactly what he did, saying unless I put her in the picture, she won't talk to me again. So I ended up telling her, and she left without saying anything. Then my sister called and was crying, saying my niece just uninvited her dad to the wedding because of whatever nonsense I told her about him, and ruined not just the event, but the family relationship. She said it's been years, and I was crazy to even still be remembering what happened. Then she said she won't let me alienate my niece from her dad, which she claimed to be my endgame. My parents were upset too, and said it caused this problem when I had a choice to show up to the wedding and not to deal with my brother-in-law because there will be other family there. Thinking I should just go and we'll be fine. I only had Mike on my side. He helped me with the restraining order and keeps saying my niece had to know eventually. But I know this was horrible timing, and because of what I did, my brother-in-law can't attend his own daughter's wedding, now that she's saying she'd call it off if my family keep pressuring her to reinvite him. They're demanding I fix it, but Mike says I'm good. He could just be saying this because he's on my side. Backstory: my brother-in-law wanted the money my grandmother left to go to my niece, but my parents used it for my college education. I went to the college my brother-in-law works in. He's a professor. And he falsely accused me of cheating and advocating/encouraging groups to cheat and had me kicked out. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. Your brother-in-law sounds like a real piece of work. Who thinks it's okay to lie and get someone kicked out of the university? Crazy how a university would expel a person for cheating with absolutely zero evidence whatsoever. You'd be shocked about the crap people get kicked out for with no evidence besides a flimsy excuse. Not today, Hull. Welcome to my favorite letter on a family bingo card. E for enabling abusers. Shut up, you. Having a problem with your tormentor is shattering our family illusion. And, well, golly, it's downright inconvenient. Creating drama, I say. What? You didn't actually expect us to back you up against a guy so bad you were granted a restraining order, did you? Your sister is married to him, and it would take backbone to figure that out. Staying quiet until your niece was 21 was already swallowing enough for the children or for the family. She cornered you and made you choose between giving her the truth or suffering yet another injustice at the hands of your tormentor by losing her too. You didn't create crap. He was an awful person, and your sucky family is reaping what they sowed when they decided to sweep his actions under the rug and value the life normalcy over the life and future of their daughter. Screw them. Not today, Hull. The backstory blows my mind. It sounds like he punished you for what your parents did. How the hell does he even get a say in what the family does with their inheritance? Oh, he specifically doesn't. It does sound like the money was earmarked for his child, though, and Opie, please correct me if I misunderstood, by virtue of being related to Grandma. And I could understand a parent being angry if that money meant for their child being taken by other family. It doesn't excuse his behavior. What he did was reprehensible. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my son deal with rotting meat? I go hunting every year. I'm not a trophy hunter by any means. I do it for meat and almost purely for economic reasons at this point. Taking a few of deer off my property once a year keeps my freezer stocked, and the grocery bill way down, which is important because finances can be tight sometimes. As a little relevant background, the bulk of the meat is kept in a large freezer in the garage, and about once a week we pull out what we will need for the next week or so, which means the freezer is normally only opened about once a week. My son, 15, has decided that he is vegetarian about 6 months ago, which my wife and I have no problems with. We started making meatless meals twice a week, and made sure every other dinner was such that the meat was separate from everything else so he could still eat with us. This has been working great for the last 6 months with no complaints. However, last week when I pulled the meat for the week out of our freezer in the garage, he decided to come behind me and unplug the freezer. I guess he thought we weren't doing enough to support his cause? He never even spoke to us or complained about our twice-a-week setup prior to unplugging the freezer. Well, as you can imagine, with a now unrefrigerated pile of meat in the summer heat, it didn't take long for the meat to start to rot and stink. The freezer kept the smell in for a while, so by the time we finally noticed, everything was completely putrid. I asked my son if he knew what happened, and he proudly said that he had unplugged it on purpose, and now we would have to be meat-free. I told him that he didn't have the right to ruin a freezer full of meat and raise the family's grocery bill without discussing it with anyone. I told him that as part of his punishment, he had to clean up his mess, meaning dispose of all of the rotting meat and either sufficiently cleaned and sanitized the freezer or purchase a new one out of his savings. He called me Nahal for making him interact with meat in any form, but he made the mess. He needs to clean it up. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'm a vegetarian myself, and I'd argue what is done is worse because the deer have now died for no reason. Plus, it's not okay for him to intentionally ruin the family's groceries and waste money. Buying a new freezer might be overkill, but I don't think it's unreasonable at all to clean it. I'm wondering if the smell of the rot can ever truly be removed, and if it can't, if it'll contaminate the new meat. Not the a-hole. Can confirm. A tube of rotten turkey meat somehow ended up in my washing machine and ruined a load of laundry. It took filling the entire thing up with bleach or vinegar several times over the course of a week to tame the smell, and another 2 weeks of daily cleaning with several packages of the machine cleaner tabs to completely eradicate the smell. Chances are, the smell in Opie's freezer saturated the internal insulation. The entire unit would be ruined if that's the case. 1000% not the a-hole. I'm fully vegan. Have been for 4 years. I wouldn't even unplug someone's meat supply because it is against the whole point of being vegetarian or vegan. It forces additional deaths of animals completely unnecessarily. By the way, you hunting a couple deer a year that are on your property, and presumably of decent size and age, is actually quite vegan of you. Best of luck dealing with him. He needs education in not eating meat. This. If someone wants to get his head out of his behind and take stock of what his actions have cost, he will be in for a shock. This should be part of the punishment in my opinion. Get him to work through the implications of what is done. His parents are likely to end up buying at least some meat during the year, and they wouldn't have done if he hadn't destroyed their store. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for threatening to sue my brother and forcing my parents to pay me to drop the lawsuit? My brother is a mechanic and started his own business, so our family decided to switch. My wife's car's brakes are at 20%, so she got them replaced there. But then she got into an accident the next day. She told me she slammed on the brakes, but it took so long for the car to stop and ended up rear-ending the next car. She has soft tissue damage from the accident and still has neck pain. My wife is a very safe driver, doesn't even speed and has never gotten a ticket, so I was suspicious and brought the car back to our original mechanic. He showed us that the new brakes were actually completely worn down, even worse than our original. I brought it up with my brother, and he admitted in person, he refused to give me a confession in writing, that he or his employee screwed up and put in worn-out brakes. I'm furious that he might have killed my wife, and I demanded he at least pay for the increase in my insurance premiums, increase of $67.50 per month, over 5 years, so about $4,050, and $30 per day over 3 months, $2,700, for Uber rides for my wife, so she gets a break from driving after her accident. My brother refused, as he said he doesn't have the money and refuses to talk to us again. My wife told me to drop the matter so we could keep the peace, but I told her my brother can't get away with this. We start filing the paperwork for a lawsuit with a lawyer, and my parents get told about the lawsuit and rush over to tell me they'll write me out of their will if I sue my brother. I feel like an idiot for trusting him. He's always been a spoiled kid who thought he could get away with anything. So my parents are rushing to defend him shouldn't be a surprise. So I told them I would only drop it if they took the amount out of his half of the inheritance. They paid what I asked, but told me I should be ashamed for betraying my own blood. I told them he should be ashamed for nearly getting my wife killed, though I'm not sure if threatening to sue my sibling was overboard. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Tell them, fine, you'll drop the civil lawsuit and go to the police to file a criminal complaint. What you did is highly illegal. Yep. Even putting the actual fraud aside, sketchy mechanics like him almost always use hot parts. Wouldn't be shocked in the least if the brother already has criminal ties. His wife could have died. He needs to report him to the police. The brother is a ticking bomb and will get someone truly hurt, or worse, if he keeps practicing as a mechanic. Not the a-hole. In fact, if your wife is experiencing neck pain, I would go ahead and sue. Here's why. I'm an attorney working in motor vehicle accident defense claims. I am not your attorney, and this is not legal advice, just my personal opinion. Car accidents, even minor ones, can seriously mess up your spine for life. If your wife still has neck pain, she may have damaged her cervical spine. It will show up on an MRI. If that's the case, there's nothing that can be done for her besides physical therapy, and, when the damage inevitably gets worse down the line, a cervical spinal fusion. That thing costs money, and your wife is entitled to that money. She's also entitled to money for the emotional distress she has inevitably suffered after experiencing an accident caused by failing brakes. In fact, she's uncomfortable driving now. All of that money is going to come to far more than $8,000. Think quadruple that amount, minimum. Plus, if your wife ever injures her neck/back again in an accident that she's not at fault for, whatever compensation she's entitled to is going to be hella reduced on the basis of pre-existing injuries for her prior accident. Best to get the money she's entitled to now, in case God forbid she needs it further down the line. And your brother won't be paying for it. His insurance company will. Make his premiums go up instead of your own, and let your wife receive the money she's entitled to. And if your parents would rather protect your brother, who could have been responsible for killing your wife, it may well be responsible for killing someone in the future if he doesn't learn his lesson, probably best to seriously reconsider your relationship with them. Wishing you both the best of luck. Not the a-hole. Look, I've worked in an auto shops and have thousands of brake jobs under my belt. And I'll tell you this was no accident. Your brother, or the technician who installed the brake pads, knew they were more worn than the original, and did it anyway. There is absolutely no way that he could not, unless he employs someone else as a mechanic. It's possible that the wrong parts box was pulled by mistake, and instead of having a new set, Whoever pulled apart pulled one of the core returns instead. This is really the only way I can figure that brake pads even more worn than the ones you came in with even got involved. But this would have been obvious to your brother and should never have been put onto your vehicle. Somewhere along the way, he said screw it, possibly due to some time deadline or inability to find the right parts, and put them on anyway. And then he lied to you saying the job was completed. This is seriously messed up. This is negligence and fraud. If your wife had been killed, he could have been charged with negligent manslaughter. If this was deliberate sabotage, then you're possibly looking at attempted homicide. Like I said, this is seriously messed up. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to punish my daughter for not sharing her makeup with her younger sister? I'm a mother of two, Maya 17 and Roxanne 14. Both my daughters love makeup and beauty. When they were younger, I used to get them equal makeup tools. But now Maya has a job and buys her own makeup with different, more expensive, brands. And like Roxanne, Maya is responsible with her makeup and beauty products. She keeps them organized and doesn't lose them easily like Roxanne often does. As a result, Roxanne doesn't have much makeup stuff, and recently this issue occurred. Maya got paid last week and went shopping with her friends and bought makeup products. Roxanne saw the stuff Maya bought since they share a room, and then came to me and her dad complaining that Maya refuses to let her share/use the makeup products she bought. My husband asked Maya if it was true, and Maya said the makeup she bought cost her money and effort at the job, and didn't think it was fair to share with her sister since she keeps losing/ruining it all the time, forcing Maya to buy more and cost her more money and work. My husband told her that this wasn't right, and she should share the stuff she buys with her younger sister. Maya still said no, which caused my husband to say he'd punish her for how mean she was being towards her sister Roxanne. Maya still said no, and my husband told her to go upstairs, then turned to me and said Maya needs to be punished for treating her sister cruelly and making her cry. I told him I don't see a valid reason to punish Maya since she did nothing wrong. He was puzzled, chuckled and asked if I really don't see what's wrong with Maya's behavior. I responded that Maya worked hard to earn money and buy her makeup, which she rightfully deserves to keep for herself. He got upset and said I was treating the girls differently and showing heavy favoritism towards Maya. After I said I won't punish her for not sharing, I stated that it wasn't Maya's fault her sister keeps losing the makeup products. But he said Maya needs to learn to share with her sister since they both have the same interest in makeup. And by not punishing her, I'd be encouraging her to become selfish. But I don't see it. He called me negative and short-sighted for not understanding what he was talking about, and accused me of being more friend to Maya than a mom, which what I should be. The argument got worse, and my husband says it's my fault if Roxanne starts resenting her sister. Not today, Hole. Good for you. Let your husband start paying for the same makeup for the younger kiddo, and see how quickly he changes his mind that they should be equal. Perfect response. Not today, Hole. Seriously this. Tell your husband to share his money to your youngest so she can buy her own makeup. Not today, Hole at all. If you force Maya, she will end up resenting you and her sister. Maya's not the problem. She is responsible, works, saves up. By all accounts, she is doing everything right. Forcing her to share spoiling the younger sister. She's the one showing bad behavior, no respect for property, and entitlement towards other people's property and jealousy. And you just do not reward bad behavior. Also, sharing makeup is not sanitary. It is a good way to spread eye infections and cold sores. Thank you. It's totally unsanitary to share makeup. Not today, Hole. It's unsanitary to share makeup, so she did the right thing saying no anyway. That's just what I was thinking. No one should share makeup.
First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my stepmother at my wedding? I, 27 female, lost my mom on my first day of school. My dad remarried 3 years later to Jane. Jane could never have children of her own, so she, as well as my dad, thought that her marrying a man with a child so young would mean she would eventually become a mom. I admit that I have not allowed that to happen. Even at a young age, I did not want another mom, and so I put a wall between me and Jane because I never felt like there was a middle ground to make us happy. We have been through therapy, a bonding camp, which sucked by the way, and I would never recommend them, and a lot of serious conversations between the three of us. When I was 17, her efforts kind of ended because I invited my aunt, mom's sister, shopping for prom, and she was upset that it wasn't just for us. I got married 2 years ago. My fiancé's parents and my dad and stepmother were all giving speeches. Fiancé and I gave ours first. Fiancé talked about our future together and how he wished his brother had been there. He lost his brother 6 years ago. And then I talked about our future together and the sadness of hitting the milestone without my mom, but how much she would have loved my fiancé and would have been so proud to welcome him to the family. During my stepmother's speech, she went into a very heartfelt message about being a mom to me, etc. She talked about the joy I brought to her life and the fact she was proud to call me her daughter. It seems that it stuck out to everyone that I call her Jane during my speech when touching on her and my dad, and that I wasn't as loving toward her in mind that I was to my parents. Then back in October, when my wedding video was finally put up by the photography company, she told me I had humiliated her on my wedding day, and how it was a slap in the face for the video to be online for all the world to see. She told me that when I invited her to give a speech along with the other parents, that I had finally embraced her in a way I hadn't before. And to sit through my speech, where I didn't give her as much love as my dead mom when she had ridden her so lovingly, it made her want to run away and cry. I told her I was sorry to have made her feel that way, but she continued to bring it up. My dad then got involved, and he told me to fix things. I could always make a post to her next Mother's Day, giving her the love she deserves for everyone to see. It turned into a fight. Then at Christmas, when my mother-in-law posted what a beautiful speech it was and how she knew my mom would have been so proud of me, after that post was made, Jane told me I needed to apologize and to make amends for embarrassing her like that. I might normally do it just to save a fight, but I don't know where she thought we had gotten closer. I included her to be polite and respectful, and I have tried to be that more as I have gotten older. But I still don't feel anywhere close to the same as she does about me or how she wants me to feel about her. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She set herself up for embarrassment when she lied about the relationship she had with you. From your story, she knew well enough you did not see her as your mother, but she chose to write it anyway. The read I'm getting is that, by asking her if she wanted to do a speech, she took it was being treated as one of the parents, and thus I had accepted her as more. But if I hadn't asked her, they would have considered it cruel to snub her. So it looks like either way, I set to lose. Giving her that one kindness does not retroactively make your relationship one between a mother and daughter. Perhaps if her speech was about how you are beginning to accept her / relationship still growing, instead of an implication that you always saw her as mom. No a-holes here. I actually feel badly for her. Sounds like she really tried / wanted to be a good stepmom to you. It must have been very hard to live day in and day out with a stepkid who put up walls and never accepted or really liked her. And sounds like she was so excited when she thought about her asking to give a speech was a sign of your acceptance of her, which is actually kind of sad in itself. And she's just very hurt and has unleashed like 2 decades of feeling hurt. That said, you were a traumatized little girl, so I don't blame you. And your speeches were fine. I feel the exact same. Trying to establish a relationship with someone for 20 years and getting no reciprocation must be hard. She wanted to be a mom. I know this is where the whole thing comes from. She was unable to have children, and so when she married a widower with a young child, she thought it would be her chance. She could finally be a mom after years of wanting it, and I'm sure another kid would have loved that someone wanted to be their mom and consider them her kids. I wasn't that kid though. My dad was the man for her, but I was not the kid for her. And I don't really blame her for wanting it. But I will never be the person to give it to her, and I don't think she will ever be able to truly not want that mother / daughter relationship. Not a a-hole. I hate step-parents that think they can just replace kids' actual parents regardless of what the child wants. I'm sorry for your loss, OP. Your dad is the a-hole for letting another woman try to replace your mom. I understand it sucks not to be able to have children, but that doesn't give your stepmom the right to waltz in and try and make you play a perfect family and forget your mom. She's also major a-hole for complaining about you missing your dead mom at your wedding. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my husband and his family to suck it up when they complained about my daughter's wedding? I won't complicate this. I have a daughter, Kara, who is not my biological daughter, nor was she my legal daughter until she reached the age of 18 when she asked me to adopt her as an adult. I married my husband when she was 14 and together we have 2 children. Kara gets along okay with my husband, but admittedly, her upbringing means she was maybe not as able to bond with a father figure as she was with a mother figure, and her age was also a factor. Regardless, everyone gets along, and I think that is the best you expect when you have someone who went through as much as she did at a young age. Kara is engaged and came to me recently and told me she would like to walk with me down the aisle and do a dance with me while her fiancé dances with his mom. She told me she didn't know how to ask for that without hurting my husband. I told her he would understand and I would be honored to do it. I did not expect my husband and his parents to take offense. They believe she snubbed my husband and is making it seem like he's nothing. After listening to them complain about this for 10 minutes, I told them to suck it up and accept that she asked me, her mom, to do both of those parts of the wedding and that I was proud to do it. I dared them to tell me I was less deserving than my husband. My husband and his parents believe I wasn't very understanding and downright rude, according to my mother-in-law. Am I the a-hole? So to clarify for people because I was not clear, my husband is not her father. He is her stepfather through me. I was married before and she was my stepdaughter who I ended up with custody of, but never legally adopted as a minor because her biological mother was alive. She has trauma relating to father figures, 2 prior ones to be exact, so she has never really considered my husband as such. But their relationship has been good considering everything she has been through. I did adopt her when she turned 18. Not my husband, just me. Now for the top comments. Not a hole. You're doing everything right, and I think it's lovely that she wanted you to walk her down the aisle. It's a testament to your relationship with her. It seems clear to me why she wouldn't want him. He doesn't behave as a parent, so why would he stand in as her father? Not a a-hole. Congratulations. So excited for you. Of course you're not. It's her wedding. There's no snubbing. She wants you. Period. Kara is engaged and came to me recently and told me she would like to walk with me down the aisle and do a dance with me while her fiancé dances with his mom. Not a hole. This is beautiful. Good job, Mom. Not a hole. What a pity party. Call the ambulance. Lol. Reminds me of Lily from Modern Family. Not a hole. Info. Did you just adopt her or did you and your husband both adopt her? Not that it makes a difference. I'm just curious. Bottom line is, she can ask whomever she wants to walk her down the aisle. It's no one else's damn business. When it's their wedding, they can be in charge of it. Just me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for spending my dad's money on a trip with my aunt instead of stepmom? A light insight. I, 17 female, lost my mom this year, early April. My parents divorced when I was really young, but I've kept in touch over the years with my dad to ask for financial help with the schools, trips, etc. Other than that, he told both my mom and I not to keep in touch unless necessary. Ever since my mom's passing, I've been living with my dad. I don't know the details, but my mom and dad never had a friendly relationship, and I could tell my dad really didn't like her. But to me, she was my single working mom and I really miss her. My dad's new wife, my stepmom, is okay, but she acts a bit tense around me and tries too hard. I don't think she likes my mom either, since she tells me to stop when I talk about her. I feel like my dad is pushing for us to get close, but I don't see that happening since I barely know either of them well enough. Plus, I'll always only have one mom. Here's where the problem starts. Back when I used to live with my mom, she used to work tons of shifts, get barely any rest, and work her damn hardest for me. I wanted to surprise her with a surprise vacation or a small trip for her to relax, but we couldn't afford it, so I started asking my dad for money every few weeks, saying I needed it for extracurricular courses. When I finally had enough, my mom passed away, and I started living with dad and stepwife. I still had the trip money left over, so I called in my aunt, mom's sister, to come with me for the trip. I don't know how, but my dad found out about the money I've collected and got really angry, but said he'd forgive me if I went on the trip with stepmom. Obviously it didn't, and left with my aunt when he was away at work. My aunt and I had a blast on our small road trip, stayed at a motel, and basically just toured around in big wide open spaces. As a city child, I had a lot of fun in the countryside. When I came back, Dad was really mad and took away all my devices and grounded me, calling me an a-hole for not choosing to go with stepmom and using his money like a thief. I know what I did was lying about my courses and taking his money was wrong, but was it wrong of me to go with my aunt? She really reminds me of my mom, and I missed her so much. My dad, his wife, and extended family found out and are calling me a petty thief and a liar. My stepmom has started ignoring me in the house too, and everyone keeps telling me to apologize. But I don't see where I did wrong with going with my aunt who I feel closer to. Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole. While the way you went about getting the money to finance the trip was not exactly kosher, you had every right to decide who to take with you. You chose to take someone you know and love, someone who is a close connection to your mother. The fact that you aren't close with your father/stepmother is their own fault. He was the one who chose to only support you financially and not emotionally, so he has only himself to blame. Is there a way for you to get out of their house? Could you live with your aunt? They're emotionally abusing and isolating you because you didn't cower to their demands, and that is not okay. It could get worse. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. I want to get out too, but I don't think my dad will allow it. Plus, my aunt is struggling financially, so I don't want to be a burden on her. I plan to move out and become independent when I can, though. Not a-hole because you are a kid and just lost your mother and have been forced to live with people who are practically strangers. I'm appalled the adults in your life are not giving you some grace for that fact. Listen, it was wrong to lie about the extracurricular stuff. I know that, you know that. But your heart was in the right place. And where else would you go for the money? And most importantly, you're a kid. A kid who wanted to help her mom. So was it a dumb choice? Yes, it was. Does it make you an a-hole? Not at all. Your dad, on the other hand, is a huge and massive a-hole. He clearly neglected you your whole life. Don't keep in touch unless necessary. What the hell is that? Even now that you're living with him, that does not make him some hero all of a sudden, since he's basically emotionally neglecting you now. You just lost your mom, and since you're living with him and not someone else, she was likely everything to you. And he is being extremely immature and selfish about this trip and the money. If he was a real parent, he'd understand and try to help you. And the stepmom is no better, ignoring you because you did not go on a trip with her? A grieving kid who just lost her mom. These people are so selfish and can't get their heads out of their own ass to act like a family. I know you're not asking for advice, but is there any way you can stay with your aunt? Everyone sucks here. Your dad sounds a little bit authoritarian, so good luck. But you shouldn't have lied about the reason why you need the money, and his reasoning probably is that he gave you money for a specific reason, and he can determine what that reason is now since you lied about it. He could have even told you to give the money back. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my girlfriend's daughter in my car or my son's? My girlfriend, Sally, and I live together with our teenage children, Dan and Grace. Both kids are 16, with about a month separating their ages. Dan is my biological child, and while Grace and I have a decent relationship and I love her, her father is definitely still in her life, so I can't say I've had a fatherly role. Sally and I split the cost of living by percentages as I make more, and though we've been together 5 years, we have no plans to wed or coming for finances. I hope that's enough backstory. If it's not, please ask for info, and I'll do my best to answer. This past year, both teens were due to get their license and take a big step forward in their lives. The issue came from my opinion being that Grace wasn't ready for that responsibility. I felt Grace would call her safety or other safety into question on the road. I only shared this with her mother in private at first. However, her mother asked that I share my concerns with everyone, so I did. It caused some headaches and accusations. However, I based it on Grace's daily life and not on a comparison to Dan. Grace is a smart child, but lacks an attention span, ignores her chores, and struggles in school. Yes, she's been tested for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and other things, and has been caught sneaking out at night. Ultimately, it didn't matter and Grace was able to get her license. Well, 3 weeks into having her license, Grace has totaled her mother's car by hitting a telephone pole while texting a friend. Grace is still bruised from it, but is otherwise healthy, and asking to use mine or my son's car, which I have shut down 100%. My ex and I bought my son his car, and while it's nothing fancy, it's his. I'm now being accused of playing favorites? being sexist, and rubbing my income into their faces due to Dan having his own car. It's escalated, and I've told Sally I don't feel comfortable with Grace driving as I think she's going to hurt someone or herself again. Am I the a-hole here? I understand getting your license is a big deal, but if you're not ready, you're not ready, right? I didn't compare the kids to one another. I'm just judging each for their actions. Where did I go wrong? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I think only one fact about Grace is relevant here. She totaled a car texting while driving. Yes, you saw it coming. Yes, she only had her license 3 weeks when it happened, but those facts are irrelevant. Anyone who loans a car to someone who just totaled a car by texting and driving is just asking to have their car totaled. It would be beyond idiotic to let her drive a car you're financially responsible for. Why would anyone, especially her parents, want her back out on the road? Do they want her to get hurt or kill someone? I literally don't understand how her actual parents just don't seem to give a damn about her health. Not the a-hole. Ask Sally how wanting her daughter alive is playing favorites or being sexist. Great response. Not the a-hole. She was texting and driving. She crashed. She shouldn't be allowed to drive until she buys her own car. It sounds simple enough to me. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.